people lose their way in the process of finding their way. Imagine getting to $1 million and still drinking just as much, if not more. Still feeling just as empty, if there's not more. I was gaining everything financially, but I was losing everything that was important to. What you tune into, you turn into. While we work most of the time trying to fit in, we should be working most of the time trying to stand out. The enemy will take your gift and pervert your gift and use it for your good and his good, as opposed to your good and God's glory. Well, B, what's my purpose? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Believers N Business podcast. I'm your host, Brian Adamson, and I want to talk to y'all today about something extremely important. So along the way, I figured out that people lose their way in the process of finding their way. You hear what I just said? Along the way, I figured out that people lose their way in the process of finding their way. And today I want to unpack that because I think one of the biggest untruths in society today is that you have to compromise who you are in order to get where you want to be. And that's just not true, okay? But I understand how this misconception has happened because I've too experienced it. And on my quest from, growing up on the west side of Detroit to blue collar parents, my dad was a firefighter for 30 years for the city of Detroit. My mom's a cashier at a grocery store for 25 years. So work ethic was instilled in me at a young age, but an avatar of entrepreneurship did not exist in my environment. And so like most people, I followed the traditional route, went to college, got a degree, went to work for corporate America in a manufacturing setting. And I always knew there was more, right? So much so that I actually started investing in real estate my junior year in college back in 2006. I've been doing that for almost 2 decades now. And so I always was entrepreneurial spirited and entrepreneurial minded. But like most people, I defaulted into what the most common thing was, which was go to college, get a job, hope that career set you up some 30, 40 years down the line and you could retire. Which for many of you that may have already gotten to that place have figured out that's just not true. And for others, you're trying to figure out, like I did, how do I get out of this cycle? How do I break this construct and get into who I think God has created me to be and more importantly, what I really want to do? What I really want to do, not what I got to do. And there's a difference when you get to do what you want to do versus the things that you got to do, right? Y'all feel me so far? And so I think about on this quest to hit the pinnacle, right? Society pinnacle is someday you'll become a millionaire. And for me, that reality happened at the age of 35. I was in corporate America for about 12 years. I finally worked myself to a point through real estate investing to get out of that corporate construct. And once I figured out how to do that, I started helping a lot of people all over the world also use real estate investing as a catalyst to be able to get them into a very similar position. Well, when you get to a point or when you're pursuing a place that you've never been, it can be very challenging to understand who you need to be in order to get there, okay? Thankfully, I've been on both sides of that coin, and I hope to unpack today what exactly that means so that you can see both sides of this coin and maybe avoid one side while pursuing the other, okay? And so social media is a strange place, as I'm sure many of y'all know, and you can't believe much of what you see, okay? Although it's hard to because perception is reality, and what you perceive, when you're looking at that phone, a lot of the times feels like reality until you start walking in that reality, okay? And so on this quest to my first $1 million, I did it a lot of different ways between investing in real estate, then I started a coaching program, and it happened, okay? But along the way of it happening, I aligned myself with people that could potentially get me further faster. Now, I'm not totally against that idea because many plans fail because of lack of counsel. Many succeed with plenty of advisors. So we should have people in our lives that can help us get further faster. No doubt about that. But it's the how we get further faster that's the most important. And so I found myself in a season where while gaining everything, I was losing everything. I was gaining everything financially, but I was losing everything that was important to me. And maybe if I'm honest with myself, that what was important to me shifted. And I can only say that because we will only behave consistently in what we believe. And at one point, in pursuit of getting to this pinnacle of $1 million, I compromised a lot along the way. I aligned myself with people who weren't the most integrous. And by the way, this is no indictment against them, right? This is just my observation looking back at the whole situation. In a lot of ways, we didn't align morally, ethically, and some of that started to show up in the business. Not from a flagrant doing people wrong perspective, but from a poor stewardship, mishandling of people at times perspective. And in result of it, my marriage suffered. I would say my family life suffered as a whole. I suffered. Imagine getting to $1 million and still drinking just as much, if not more. Still feeling just as empty, if there's not more. And having all this financial success, but still not feeling whole at the same time. And so hopefully through this conversation, I can help you to avoid that pitfall, okay? Because the true reality is that you don't have to compromise who you are or what you stand for just for the sake of having financial success. As a matter of fact, and this is one of the biggest issues that I got with social media, is that it will have you in this comparison stronghold, right? And for those of you that are believers and understand the word, we know that comparison is the thief of joy, right? Everything about it will rob you of the joy that you should have. Why? Because in many cases, we end up becoming a counterfeit of who we really are. And part of the reason for that is because we don't understand who we really are, because we're still figuring it out. And I just want to be the first to tell you in total confidence that you don't have to acquiesce and compromise who you are to get where you want to go. Okay. I'm at a place now after purging myself, God purging me of that environment, of the things that I picked up during that time, because here's the reality: what you tune into, you turn into, right? So your environment is critical, because just as much as you may know something is wrong, just as much as you may be against something, just as much as you can sense that something is off, when that carrot is dangling in front of you, you'd be surprised at the things that you're willing to do and go against the very nature of everything that you know that I just aforementioned. And I look at now how I've been successful and why I've been successful. And I want to give it to you so that you can also adopt these things and become successful. Number one, figuring out that while we work most of the time trying to fit in, we should be working most of the time trying to stand out. And I don't mean from a perspective of doing wild stuff on social media for views. I don't mean being abrasive and controversial for the point of clicks. I'm talking about leaning into the one thing that you can do that can't nobody do better than you, and that's be you. Scripture says that your gift will always make room for you. And part of the problem is that, one, we don't identify our gifts. Secondly, even when we do, we too scared to deploy them. And third, we look for approval for the very thing that God has already gifted us with, that if we lean into that, we'll have all the success that we want, right? And when you look at, the scripture of your gift will make room for you, what that's really saying is if you just be yourself unequivocally, that there are rooms and people waiting for you to show up as 100% you. Because again, can't nobody do you better than you could do you. But we don't believe that enough. And earlier in this conversation, I said that we would only behave consistently in what we believe. And I look now at all the success that I've had, the relationships that I've garnered in result of it, the relationships that I garnered to help me be successful has been almost 100% attributed to the fact that I've been 100% myself. And many of the relationships that kind of catapulted me into this next phase of life or this new level of success, these are people that don't look like me, don't talk like me, don't think like me, don't come from the same background as me. But their values are aligned, their morals are aligned, their ethics are aligned, their principles are aligned. And if you align yourself with enough of those people and you have some value to add, which we all do because of our gifting, then the inevitable is you will become successful. No different than the inevitable is if you hang out with 5 losers, you become the 6. And so I believe this is probably the biggest hang up for most people, that they get stuck in this tension of they don't know who they are. They haven't identified their gifts. And so they just keep trying to become a carbon copy of what they think is successful, not understanding that even if you're able to go and garner the financial success from that, you will lose yourself in the process and be completely empty on the inside. And that was the biggest turning point and realization for me. Now, for some of you, you like, okay, all this sound good, but like, how do I even identify my gifts? Okay. So I'm gonna give you some practical and spiritual application to that. The practical application is this. More often than not, the things that we are most gifted at are the things that we're probably most teased about as adolescents, probably the thing that we're most teased about from our family members and friends, because it's a funny way of them acknowledging what your gifts are, but they speak against them. For instance, let's just say that historically you've been like the funny person, right? Every environment you go into, you're the funny person. And you oftentimes probably get teased by friends and family members like, look at Sheila always trying to be funny. Look at B always trying to be the funny one. What they're trying to say is that they really appreciate your gifting, but they don't know how to call it that. So they tease you about it because it's abnormal to them. Your gift will be abnormal to most people because you do it naturally while they do it in a struggle. Hey, real quick, I know sometimes on this journey of success, it could be extremely difficult. Maybe you're having financial success, but you're struggling in other areas of your life. You're struggling to keep your family life together. You're struggling to keep your finances together, your health and your wellness. Maybe you just don't have the right kind of people around you. And so I want to give you an opportunity to join our Believers in Business community where we're helping you truly find success, because a lot of people struggle to be successful at being successful. Imagine that. And so we're going to be covering just that. We're going to be showing you how to get stronger in your faith, how to leverage that in business with biblical principles, how to get better with your finances. Many people come into the community and get out of debt. How to get your health and your wellness together in our fitness pillar, as well as how to get free, right? Free from those things that are keeping you from the thing that you actually want. And then lastly, how to have holistic success where your family can be proud and fulfilled just as you are. All right. And so click the link. It's in the show notes, and you'll get an opportunity to come in and join our Believers in Business community so that you can finally find the success that you truly want for yourself. All right, back to the episode. Am I talking to anybody yet? So I want you to start thinking about what are those things, right? Maybe as a Black person, if you articulate yourself well, you get teased from saying you talk too white. What they're really saying is that you're really good at speaking the King's English, and how do you do that, right? Maybe you got a natural gift to be able to take very complex topics and make them super simple for people. I'm like, dang, how do you figure that out and to some degree, you're almost like, I don't know. It's just what I do, right? Your gift is something that you do unconsciously. Okay. So, and I haven't forgot, I'm gonna still tell you the spiritual side. So I got a gift to exhort. I got a gift to teach. I got a gift to communicate, which is why I'm exercising this gift right now. I have a phenomenal gift as an executor. So some people are ideators, right? They're very good at coming up with new ideas and all these brilliant things to do, but they don't do them because they have the gift to ideate, but they don't have the gift to execute. Well, where you can identify that, then as an ideator, you need to find people around you that can execute your vision, right? So I got a gift to execute. I got a tremendous spiritual gift of wisdom and discernment, which I'll talk to y'all more about that in another episode. But I want to give you some examples so that you can start thinking of your gift in a very practical way. Okay. Now, on the spiritual side of this gifting, how do you discover it? Okay. Even if everything I just mentioned still doesn't give you the clarity that you're seeking, how do you get to a point where you identify your gift? I'm glad you asked. So the first thing is just praying, right? Spending time with the one that created you and ask him, what are your gifts? Ask him to point out to you, what are your gifts? And guess what? He will start to reveal them to you. But we got to take the time to, one, identify that we don't know what they are. And secondly, ask the one who gave them to us what they are. Because he gave them to us, he put something on the inside of us so that by his glory, people will see on the outside of you what he put on the inside of you. So if you ain't operating your gifts, then people not even seeing the very thing that God graced you and blessed you to do, be, and have. Imagine living a life and missing that mark. Now, the interesting thing about after discovering your gift is then you got to deploy it. Well, how do you deploy it? You deploy it in your purpose. Okay. Well, what's my purpose? Well, I think the idea of your purpose is ing. When I say that, I mean things that have an ed is in the past tense, and things that have a period stop. When I say ing, meaning it's continuous. So, for instance, I come from the streets. I was looking at a 4 to 10 year felony my senior year in high school from hustling, caught a case. And I think back to that time in my life where manipulation, which is now influence, yielded to God. You know, the ability to hustle, which is now being an entrepreneur. You know, all of those are gifts. My ability to communicate even back then while in that setting. You know, because communication is being able to transfer ideas, thoughts, and emotions to somebody else to get them to feel those same things and to understand those same things. So it's a gift. But when undiscovered and not yielded to God, then it's the enemy will take your gift and pervert your gift and use it for your good and his good as opposed to your good and God's glory. Let me take a sip. Y'all picking up what I'm putting down so far? So one of the best things that everybody can do for themselves, and I'm talking about ASAP, is to discover what your gift is. And if you know what your gift is, start using it. Now, back to this purpose thing, the reason why I say it's an ing is because, as I just mentioned, my purpose and your purpose is your entire life. And while there may be, I won't even say that because I don't believe there's a final destination. What I do believe, though, is there's multiple destinations along the journey. And so my gifting was relevant in the streets. My gifting was relevant while at college, where I went from an environment where I was 99%, the majority growing up on the west side of Detroit, to being dropped off at a college where I was 3% the minority. And so my gift still made room for me in an environment where nobody understood me. Not because they didn't want to, but because they hadn't been privy to such an individual that come from the context that I do and being dropped off in their environment. And so even in that time where I was 3% the minority, literally spots of pepper and a table of salt, I still remain true to who I was. And the thing that people do identify with is authenticity. That's why that's your greatest superpower in tandem with your gift, is just being who you are, and let those that identify with it identify, and let those that don't go bye-bye. You know what I'm saying? Let those that identify with your gift identify, and let the others go bye-bye. And that's part of the problem with this whole conversation, is that even sometimes when we identify our gifts, we conceal it because we don't want the smoke. And y'all know what smoke I'm talking about. We don't want people's opinion to bother us. I know. I know you was like, B, this conversation going so good. Why you have to just stick the knife in right there? But it's the truth. We don't want people's opinion. We don't want people's opinion to bother us. And the truth is, as long as that's your concern, then your life is not your concern. Because you will miss your whole entire life trying to please everybody and to satisfy the opinion of others. When the truth is, their opinion is just that, is their opinion. And you ain't changing it. So you might as well get to being 100% of what you can be, which is you, and let the chips fall where they may. And make a vow to yourself to hang out to make a vow to yourself to hang out places where you celebrate it and not tolerate it. Hang out with those that celebrate 100% of who you are. And if you make a habit of doing that, and you make a habit of stopping yourself from shrinking to fit into places that you've outgrown, you experience life and life to the full. Which, for those of y'all that are believers, that's what Jesus' whole mission was, to give us life and life more abundantly. That's life to the full. And one of the biggest things and one of the biggest detriments about not deploying your gift when you understand what it is that you will never truly find success. Because God blessed you with your gifts in order to deploy them into your purpose. So if you're concealing your gift, you're not only robbing you, you're not only robbing God, you're robbing everybody you're supposed to come in contact with that's supposed to benefit from the thing that you and only you can do for them when they come in contact with you. So the message that you're afraid to share could be saving somebody's life. The business you're afraid to start could be the answer to somebody's biggest problem. The comment you're afraid to make could be the very thing that kept somebody from suicide on a particular day. Ask me how I know. I've literally had people come into my coaching program, spend over $20,000 for me to only find out later on into that relationship that it was never about real estate. It was about the fact that they were in town in Orlando with their children and asked could I meet up with them downtown, for me to only get there and see a 40-something-year-old man with tears in his eyes. I'm asking him where his kids are at. He dropped them off somewhere. And he was on the brink of killing himself. And in that moment, I had to use my gift of communication. I had to use my gift of empathy. I had to use my gift of discernment to be able to aid and assist somebody who was essentially about to end their lives for nothing that they should have been. But if I would have never used my gift way upstream, watch this. If I wouldn't have used my gift way upstream and been making those videos and putting myself out there and going live on social media and sharing what I had to share with the world, then I would have never drawn him unto me to have the interest in what he thought was real estate, but had the benefit of what he needed and God using me in that moment to help save his life. And so we don't think of it that way. We so consumed with our own fear. We so selfish by being consumed with our fear. You say, hold on, B. Wait, what you say? Yeah, we selfish when we consume with our fear. Because we're thinking about us. The reason why we're fearful of doing the thing is because we're fearful of the rejection that we may get if we do the thing, which is selfish. And it's the trick of the enemy to keep us from being everything that God needs us to be and has called us to be, so that we can do all the work that can't nobody else do but us. He created you for a specific assignment. Jeremiah 29:11 says that he has plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you a hope in the future. That's his plan. But if you don't abide in that plan, you don't obey in that plan, then guess what you're going to have? A life that's mediocre at best. You know how many people That's why they say that the cemetery is the richest place on earth. Is because that's where everybody goes to die, and so do all their ideas. And all those ideas that they never deployed was the very thing that would have got them life and life to the full. And so the interesting thing about everything that we're talking about today, which I hope is very helpful for you guys, the interesting thing about all of this is that if we're willing to identify our gifts, if we're willing to deploy them into our purpose, and we're willing to walk in that purpose, nobody, you hear me? Nobody can stop us. But but I've been waiting, because, when I was young, my dad said this about me, my mom said this about me, my cousins told me I was this, and I get it. I get it. But you know what? God said something totally different about you. He said that you was fearfully and wonderfully made. He said that you was his